The college is starting to build on ideas and using vast quantities of land around it. John Aldous, Principal Number 3 at Prendiville, asks an insightful question. John's predecessor, Rob Daniel, paints the picture.
That land to the west of what is now to the west of the college,
yes.
That bushland all belonged to the school at one point, wasn't it?
The whole of this block was totally
how we lost access.
The whole road, it was used quite extensively by Jerry and the science staff to go out, and I was most impressed. They would mark out, say, a square metre of soil, and they'd go out and do bug analysis and all sorts of things. So it really was extensively used, and it hadn't been set fire. It was all this side that this kid used to set fire to. And then I think I was on the School Resources Committee at the time that the church ran into, this was GFC time, they ran into financial difficulties, and so the scheme was hatched to divest the school of the land, and that didn't go down well.
How many petitions did we sign?
There was public meetings here at the school with Therese Temby out here and all the rest of it, and because the school that I had in Adelaide, the nuns had left Adelaide and gone back to Melbourne at the time, I'd had some issues of dealing with church land and the role of the Archbishop in canonical persons and juridical persons, is it? You'd probably deal with that in. So when all of this happened, I was used to juridical persons and canon law and all sorts of things, and there were certainly some very vociferous staff, and parents wanted to buy the balance of the school block. We'll show them, we'll buy this part of the block. But of course, it was the Archbishop's land, and even if the school community had have put in and bought the land, it still would have been in the name of the bishop. So that big limestone wall was erected, and the builder wanted to, he ran out of money. It was much more expensive than he thought it was going to be. It's huge, the engineering in that. So he thought we should have been paying for it. It had nothing to do with us. And one of the things that happened at the time was the community newspaper got onto this, and they had a picture of Buzz ringing the school the siren, and the people that were now ready to move into there complaining that the school time bell was interrupting their siestas and all sorts of things. And of course, here was Buzz. So it'd be interesting to actually track down community news, because I'm sure it'd be in their archives, this cartoon. It really was quite clever.
We did get a trade-off in the end, where the CEO approved plans and fast-tracked some cheap funding for us to build an oversized gymnasium, basically to pacify the school community. So I think at the time gymnasiums were around 500 square metres. That was the recommended size to build, and we got well over 1,000 square metres.
So that's the voice of Terry Raphael, the college bursar of 25 years. We'll hear from Terry in a bit. But meanwhile, the first real tragedy to strike at the heart of the Prendiville community occurred in early 1994. Rob and Fulvia take up the story.
Yeah, the March long weekend.
I told you, didn't I?
It was the March long weekend, Friday night, and probably the hardest weekend of my school life, I think.
Me too.
I was out just for dinner around the corner from where Fulvia is in Careen, or was, and I got a phone call from Father Simon, and how the hell he knew, because there was no mobile phones in those days, and so I came up here because I'd got the word that kids had gone everywhere after Tracy was killed.
Can you just fold out on that? We're talking about a young lady by the name of Tracy Black.
Can we just go back to that same afternoon? She was in my homeroom. It was still early in the year where you're still getting to know them. I didn't teach her other than homeroom RE, so we're still getting to know them. That afternoon, she stopped at my desk and with another girl, and we were chatting in a way that we hadn't had the opportunity to. And she had this like a bar across here with little dolls' heads things, and I said, "Oh, that's cute. Show me," you know. So I had a look at it, and I said, "Oh, what's-" it says, "Oh, that's my good luck charm." That same night, you know. That same
Tracy
night.
was a super kid.
She was vice captain, wasn't she?
She was vice captain. She was on the student council, so I'd been away on camp with them during the Christmas break, and I'd say that she was probably the most liked student in the school, and she was at a birthday party down on Mullaloo Beach, and the birthday party was the 17th birthday of a staff member's son, and that staff member had said, "You are not to have a birthday party at all," and so they were all down there, and when they were coming back from the beach and there'd been some drinking, Tracy, from all accounts, darted across the road away from the couple of lads that were accompanying her and was killed. The car was driven by the father of a Year 12 boy, who happened to be in the passenger seat, and I won't go into some of the things that he was alleged to have said at the time, but it certainly fired up the whole of the Year 12 group. Of course, in those days, we didn't have, what do you call them?
Counselling.
We didn't have a counsellor. Well, we did. We had a nun at the time.
Oh, yes, Sister Joan.
Sister Margaret, I think.
Oh, Sister Margaret.
Yeah. Who didn't handle that sort of situation particularly well, or didn't have the skills to, and wasn't trained in that. And I think Barry Harvey, who was principal at Servite at the time, he rang me and said, "I will give you my counsellor who can guide you through the process." So we didn't have any, what do they call them, trauma plans or whatever in those days.
So this was the first time you had to deal with a situation like this?
Yeah, in my school experience up to that stage, I hadn't dealt with a student death. There was one at Aquinas the week after I'd finished for the year. One of the boarders was killed. But apart from that, no, I hadn't. So this was a whole new experience. And for a lot of the staff, it was probably their first experience of the death of a student member, and particularly a popular one. And anyway, I remember the lad from Wanneroo, who was the head boy at the time, when we did get the 12s back together again. It was quite moving, because we were busy dealing with each other and with particularly with the Year 12s. But he put his hand up and said, "How are the staff dealing with this?" So he was the head boy at the time.
Interesting.
Which I thought was pretty special.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got through it, and I think the general consensus was that as a staff, we handled that pretty well.
I think we did, yeah. Yes. And they put up the kids of their own volition. It was over in C Block, do I dare say?
Yes.
Was it? I don't think Dee was there yet. Was it? Dee wasn't there yet. No, because I was still in the demountable on the other side.
Right.
So, and that was our homeroom, and they put up on the wall, and she loved dolphins. So they had dolphins, and they had colours, and it was, and letters and notes and flowers, and then the question of when do you take it down? Because every time I'd go to my classroom, it reminded you, and it reminded you, and we waited till the end of that year, and those Year 12s left, and then we respectfully took it down. The day before she died, we wrote I don't know if they still do it in Year 12, the letter of what I aspire to, what I hope for this year and future, and I had them in my cupboard. The idea is we gave them out at graduation. This is what you said, what do you reckon? You know, have you achieved that? And then I struggled with, do I give it to her parents or not, you know? And we did. We handed it over to the parents. And wrote it the day before she passed.
Unfortunately, the road is marked down on that stretch of Seaview Road. What's the name of the thing?
Mullaloo Drive, isn't it?
Yeah, right on the water.
Ocean
Drive.
Sunset Drive or Ocean Drive.
And they lived only 100 metres
Yes, up
from
the road. But it's that old-fashioned
Okay.
house, and on the road is the H white for hydrant.
Right.
And it's a reminder there every time. It's right next to that sign. Well, I deliberately drive up and down to this school that way, and every time I go past that, Rita and I acknowledge Tracy.
Rob,
passed
certainly I saw it as a point where staff gelled,
Oh,
perhaps like they
absolutely.
had not done
Yes.
We really
prior
did.
to that.
We really
yeah.
did. Yeah.
So that was one of the positives to come from something you hadn't experienced
It
before.
was, yeah. You know, they say sometimes that out of bad has to come the good.
1995 saw the arrival of Terry at the college.
Yeah, so I had been in Europe for, must have been term 3, I think, of 1995. And I came back and was told that my good friend and enemy over at Mater Dei had recruited our
Gillian.
our bursar.
Yeah.
And that she was finishing in 3 or 4 weeks' time or something like that. So the position of bursar was advertised, and we went through the process and chose the successful applicant and advised the unsuccessful applicants that thanked them for their role in joining in and offering their services. And the successful applicant had accepted the position, and about 3 or 4 days later felt guilty in leaving the school that he was currently employed. And so I had to backtrack and go cap in hand. I was going to the Catholic Education Office, I think, and so I stopped at Balcatta High, Senior High, on the way down to Leederville, and asked if I could see Mr. Raphael, who'd told us during the interview process that he wasn't a gambler.
Had no Murphy
Not with his own
connection.
money anyway.
And so in December of 1995, I think it must have been,
It was,
Terry joined us, and I don't think he'd had the sort of experiences of running a whole of school budget or anything like that, or Commonwealth guidelines and all sorts. And so we had a bit of good time together and built a gym and built art centres and home economics areas and canteens and extended manual arts and all that, didn't we?
Yeah, I suppose like when I first arrived here, and Rob's very right, I'd never done a payroll before, and I suppose my handover from Gillian was a little bit scant because she was going to go over to Mater Dei, and it was in December at the end of the school year, so I had a couple of weeks. So I think must have been about 3 weeks into the job, and I went to Rob and I said, I don't know about this, mate. I said, I'm not sure if I really know whether I'm going to be able to nut this out. And he says, what do you want to know? And I said, well, there's the finance side of things, and we got talking. And I said, maybe you need to get Gillian back to just give us a bit more information. And Rob said, well, we can do that. He says, I know a bit about that stuff. And so I sat down together. And actually, Rob knew a lot more than what he was leading on. He probably could have done the job himself at that stage. So, together we kind of grappled with it. And I suppose if it hadn't been for Rob's, guidance there, I probably would have struggled. But certainly, following the next year, we started getting into the swing of things, and we had on the plan, the capital development plan there, that they were going to build a school gymnasium in 1999. Yeah, but when I got talking to Rob and the board, I said, I think we could bring this forward a couple of years and build it in 1997. So we decided that that was a bit of a go. So we embarked on quite a big plan to build this exceptionally large gymnasium. And we're in the Performing Arts Centre now, but this whole hill up here was from the spoils of the cap rock and everything that we had down where we were excavating the gymnasium. So I'll carry on about the gym because it was my first big build, and I was obviously a little bit anxious about it. And Rob and I were tracking it pretty well. We had very, very good help with quantity surveyors and what we thought was a good builder. And I was down having a couple of beers at the Mullaloo Tavern one afternoon, and I was heard a couple of tradies saying that they were going to pull off the job at Prendiville.
What stage was it at, Terry?
The roof on.
Yeah, we're just getting the roof on. The
yeah,
roof was on.
Yeah, it was on, but they hadn't been paid for it.
No, that's right.
From
Because
memory.
the crazy roofer came in and threatened Rob that he wasn't getting paid. So the builder was going broke, and he was pressing us for a payment, a significant payment of around about $400,000, and he wanted his money early. And so we had a bit of a conference with the board and Rob and myself, and we didn't pay that amount of money. We just held off, and we said, no, we'll pay you as per the terms of the contract. And I think a week after that discussion, they went into liquidation. And so we had to scramble to get another builder to finish it off, which was, in the building game, the worst kind of scenario. You don't want to pick up someone else's work and put all the guarantees in. But we had a couple of mates, and we got it back together.
Yeah.
So how are you working? What's the teamwork here on this one?
Well, we met. Who would have been the quantity surveyor? Terry Merrifield, wasn't it? Merrifield and Associates. Terry and myself and Merrifields met with the builder, and I always remember they offered a shady deal, didn't they, Terry?
Yeah.
They had a shelf company, and they were going to move the building contract out of West something or other.
City
West or something like that,
yeah.
from this into
City
another
Build.
company. And I remember saying, so you're saying to us, we should move out of one leaky boat into another. And he effectively said, yeah, that's right.
Let's leave it there. We know the gym finally got built, but did Rob and Terry decide on the leaky boat idea, or would they pass? Terry will become a very important and influential player in so many facets of Prendiville's existence. But like in life itself, there's a starting point. Rob takes up the story of Terry's arrival. Then we hear about the trials and tribulations of gymnasium building. 3 players from Voices from the Past will reveal all. We learn about the fast-tracking of Prendiville becoming established with paths, lawns, arches, and a new architect to boot. Society was becoming more sophisticated, and so too was Prendiville. And were prices to be paid for its isolation? Rob talks about the reason for the demise of the wind control officer, along with the importance that the college crest be changed. Controversial indeed.